You're listening to the Walking Dead Enthusiasts Podcast. Your hosts, Sebastian Kubanucci.
I thought I had to take a really big dump after eating tacos, and I got up, and there was a baby in my toilet.
Dennis Patrick.
I wouldn't miss my family in the zombie apocalypse, but I would be concerned about the future of Taco Bell.
And Ryan Smith.
You can put ketchup on your skitty all you want, but you can't date no child molestator.
Welcome to the Walking Dead Enthusiast Podcast by Fandom. I'm Sebastian.
I'm John.
I'm Dennis.
Today we're talking about Season 9, Episode 5 of The Walking Dead, entitled What Comes After. We would think it was...
After what, Sebastian?
After the death of Rick Grimes. Judith.
Spoiler.
Judith Grimes.
All 45 pounds of her.
She's got the katana. She's got the Colt Python. She's set.
It's probably my one major gripe. Right there.
The Colt Python?
A 10-year-old child should not be able to handle the kick of a Colt Python. She should be in orbit.
Rick, there was no recall on that Colt Python.
There really wasn't.
No. He tried. He tried to make it look like there was, but there definitely wasn't. So
she shoots for accuracy from distance with a hand cannon.
Well, Rick lost like 50% of his blood supply, and he was still getting headshots. So
at the very least, that's right. I'm on my knees. I can only see through one eye.
Yep.
And I can still put it between the old two eyes, the best of them.
Dennis, how's it going tonight, buddy?
It's going good.
Yeah. You're super high on this, aren't you?
Oh, yeah. Complete garbage.
Wait, garbage?
No,
what?
no, I'm just kidding. No, it was amazing. It was phenomenal.
I was like,
Best
you've been playing me.
Yeah.
You've been playing me all day for the last... He was like, I'm so high on this. Oh, my God. This is some of the best. Oh, my God. There's going to be movies.
Well, isn't it weird that the best episodes are directed by Greg Nicotero and written by Scott M. Gimple?
Dennis, shut up.
To be fair, he didn't do the teleplay. The story is by Gimple and Matthew Negrete. The teleplay is by Negrete. So,
well, even that, he's mostly known for cartoons, ain't he?
Mostly.
Children's cartoons.
Got to give a guy a shot, you know?
I'm not knocking him. It's just stating some facts.
Yeah, it's true. You know, American Dragon, Power Rangers, RPM.
Oh.
Also, White Collar. White Collar, everybody.
Oh, some quality stuff there. So this is the first like drama, serious drama he's written for.
I don't know if I would call it serious in that, you know, Walking Dead is almost like soap opera-y now.
Yeah.
But I think something where it's sort of this level of violence and stakes, sure. Yeah, I think definitely. It ain't Kim Possible, I'll tell you that.
What makes them like hand the keys over to the kingdom to someone who's never like written this type of stuff before on like this specifically very important episode? I don't understand that.
Dude, I don't know. I mean, half the last 3 seasons have been guys who've never done more than camera work who are like, you know what? Let's give the kid a shot.
Yeah, for real. Which has been the problem for the last 3 seasons of this fucking show. So, and Greg Nicotero, like, I have no faith in him as a director, so, you know, whatever. But, all right, yeah. So, you know, before we jump too far into this, let's start with you, John. What did you think of this episode?
You know, I walked into this really expecting to just hate my balls off for like 50 some odd minutes, however long they gave Rick, 68 minutes. And Angela Kang got me, man. This half of the season, this 6 episodes or whatever. And I think it's partly due to who you have occupying the screen, you know, rightfully so. But you have an actor of the caliber of Andrew Lincoln, center stage. It's, you know, him driving the narrative for, you know, almost the entirety of this episode, and he just fucking carries it, man.
Yep.
This is strong.
Yeah, and he's just riding a horse for 80% of it.
You know, I mean, even though that horse was like, my bad, dog, I'm sorry about that rebar thing. I'm going to stay, though.
Yeah, right? Like, just hanging out. Like, what kind of bullshit was that? There was, like... Dennis, I'll go to you next. What did you think of the episode? Because I feel like I'm going to be a little bit of the dissenting opinion here, so
Wow.
I'll go to Dennis.
No, yeah, I have to agree with John. It was like an emotional roller coaster, and I've never felt that way about an episode of this show, ever.
Even though you knew what was going to happen.
I knew what was going to happen. I saw the leak, but at the same time, I thought maybe that leak was wrong.
The leaks are never wrong, Dennis. The leaks are never wrong.
I mean, I think all three of us knew the leak, I think, and still, I mean, agree with Dennis. It was a definite, there were points throughout the episode where like, you should feel something right here. I'm like, yes, I do. Yes, I do.
Yeah, I mean, particularly the end of it, but like a little bit, it just felt like a little contrived. Like when I hear that like Scott Gimple wrote it, I was like, I can see that. And when I hear that like Greg Nicotero directed it, I'm like, I can see that. Like I'm pretty sure Negan uttered the lines, "You were supposed to," or something that Morgan has said 5,000 times before on this show and Fear the Walking Dead. And I'm just like, oh my God, that is Negan. And then I almost felt like this episode reverted a little bit back to the metaphorical way of speaking that like the show it has been having issues with for the last 2 seasons. Like it was cool to see some of these old characters. Like it was cool to see Sasha, and it was cool to see Herschel and Shane. But I don't necessarily feel like any of these Flash whatever, as I want to call them Flash Sideways, like did they really serve a purpose? Like I don't know. Like what was Herschel really saying? What was Sasha really saying? I
can break that down for you.
Okay, well, we'll get there. You don't have to break that down yet.
I'm ready.
And then just like some of it just felt like a really like contrived, like the horse casually hanging out. Why is there dynamite just on this bridge that they constructed? The bridge looked 95% finished. Why do you just have like 4 boxes of dynamite sitting on your freshly finished bridge? It doesn't really make sense. And then, I was fine with Rick's death. Like that didn't bother me at all. Like I was like, well, that's cool. The way he blew up, I was like, oh, that's awesome. And then, I read the leak, so I knew what was going to happen. But then he gets picked up and taken away in a helicopter, and then you flash forward right to The Talking Dead, where Scott Gimple is announcing like 3 movies that are going to be released featuring Rick Grimes. Like after all of this, it just felt like a little bit cheap to me. Like the only reason it would have been a perfect ending to his story had he died there, but the only reason they ended up keeping him alive is so that they can make fucking 3 AMC original feature-length movies starring Andrew Lincoln as Rick Grimes. It kind of killed it for me in that moment.
Nah, I'm good with it.
Really? Like, I don't know, man. I wanted to grieve. I wanted to feel something, and I'm like, oh, Rick's alive. Okay. That kind of negates everything. I feel like I'm being Ryan tonight because that's like what he felt. He was like, none of this matters because Rick's getting killed off, or not killed off, but taken off the show, so who cares? And that's like kind of how I feel. Like, Rick didn't die, so who cares?
Sure. Well, you're also, but then to allow that to supersede what you're going to see on the show, which is actual grieving in the aftermath of their very definitive loss, because for them, he did die, right? And for you, you're the sort of the omniscient viewer. You get to know that information that he's alive.
Yeah.
But they won't know it, and they won't ever know it, we assume, right? So you get to go through the stages of grief, and you can experience that. You just have to really divorce yourself from your own, omniscient knowledge.
You're right. But in the same way, they flash forwarded 6 years.
Right.
The end
no,
of this
true.
Episode. So no one should be feeling anything at this point. Like, if I'm watching Daryl sulk around that he misses Rick Grimes, like, it's been 6 years.
No, well, it's not about, and now it's not going to be about who's missing who. It is how their personality has been shaped by that moment.
You're right.
Right? Because then the first thing you see Michonne, like, Michonne is all fucking business.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
You see like the empathy kind of gone from her in a way. She's hard. she's an outside cat again. You see all that stuff. That she's, while simultaneously kind of reverted to a place where she knows is sort of a piece of strength and distance for her, which is, I'm a wandering badass with this goddamn sword in my hand.
Yeah.
Right? So you don't necessarily have to see them operate in the moment that you're in. Now you actually have to do the work and transport yourself to get to them, because they're 6 years after the fact, to your point. You have to say to yourself, okay, well, I'm not grieving. They're not grieving, but they have grieved. And what you're seeing is the aftermath of that grief hardened into their new personalities.
Yeah, I mean, I guess it's just hard from my perspective, because it's like I didn't grieve because there's no reason to grieve because Rick didn't die.
But sure. No, I get it. Is it cheap? Maybe.
It's super. Like, come on. Can either of you admit to me that this is a money grab on the part of AMC?
I mean, why do you have the show to begin with? To make money? You know, they're not nonprofit organizations, are they? You know, AMC's not out there like, we just do it for the homeless and all of the small children who don't have winter coats. No, they're here to sell fucking ad money and rake it in. That's why Darabont's suing them. That's why Kirkman's suing them, because they're all after money.
So do you think that when Andrew Lincoln had decided to leave the show, this movie thing was on the table already, or that came after? I
think Gimple had probably been gestating, because he wanted to leave in season 8.
Yeah, that's what he said on Talking Dead.
Right, he wanted to leave then. So I think Gimple had that in the works. Like, Lincoln still wants to work. It's not like he wants to go to England and kind of like, you know, fuck off forever. Yeah. Never come back. You know, I just want to do period dramas again. Nah, I think he's had a taste of that money, and he'd very much like to keep it in that area. But no, I think it comes out of Andrew, you know, really just as a man wanting to be with his family. Yeah. And the movies, the trilogy, I guess, that they're kind of cooking up. I think that's a win-win for everybody. Like, I want to see him continue to play the character. For me, I'm selfish like that. Just screw your family, keep playing this thing till I'm bored of you, and then go live your life.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Well, so does he play the character? I was a little bit confused by like what exactly Scott Gimple was pitching on The Talking Dead. You know, he did confirm 3 feature-length AMC movies. So these aren't movies that you're going to see in the movie theater. These are movies that you're going to see on AMC. And, of course, I'm sure there will be commercials.
Well, maybe.
Oh, come on. You know, like, if we're talking ad revenue, they're definitely fucking selling ads in that movie.
Well, but they also, yeah, sure.
Right? I mean, like, AMC doesn't even show a movie, like, without commercials these days.
Right, but I mean, for AMC to diverge quickly, if they were going to show commercials with a feature length, you'd need like 3 hours of airtime to do it. Yeah. Like 3.5. I read an interview with Lincoln in the New York Times.
Oh wow! He made the New York Times.
They did. They did a sit down with him, and he was in New York. They did a little restaurant interview and then a follow up. And what he's most interested in for this is because he had the most fun, I think, in the pilot. We're building the character and taking him in not a new direction necessarily, but in an entirely new world to see what the quote unquote adults have been doing this whole time. And the report that was his quote, like, see what the adults have been doing from like governments and what is the larger world up to? Mm-hmm. Why are all these helicopters going around everywhere? What are all the answers to all these questions? The reporter almost got it out of him. He's like, whoop, I can't say anything. I mean, what? What's happening? Who?
So then we are going to some sort of governmental body in these movies?
That sort of what you can glean from that. We know that Kirkman is heavily involved in the storyline creations of this, but it is entirely new. It's a part of the narrative that's never been kind of touched on, because I think Kirkman's really stayed away from those larger sort of entities.
So this is going to be, like, the movies are going to take place immediately following the events that occurred here.
That we don't know. We would imagine that first movie would pick, like, if I'm just kind of thinking of it in my own head, imagine so, but he's going to need a period of recovery, to your point. Mm-hmm. Half the blood in him.
Yeah. Yes.
Right? I don't know how long it takes you to get half your blood back, but sometime.
Takes a while.
Takes a little bit. It takes like a skosh, like a little bit of time.
Yeah.
2 weeks and some lemonade, and you'll be good to go.
Yeah. Well, I've got to imagine the first movie entirely is him like fighting and wanting to get back to his family. I would hope.
Right.
Like that was people's biggest criticisms. Like people are like, okay, Rick Grimes is flying away now in a helicopter, and are we really supposed to believe that he just accepts this fate and moves on from it when he knows his family is still out there?
Right. Yeah. The conceit there would have to be like you can't go back, or there's a compelling reason that he has to stay dead to them.
Yeah, which I don't buy at all. But so, John, are you well versed in the comics or not so much?
I'll give it like 40% versed.
Okay, so then Dennis, in terms of the Commonwealth, let's say the Commonwealth becomes the movie. Is the Commonwealth like a governmental body? I feel like I'm asking you about it. I should just read the fucking comics and catch up. But like
they're in Ohio, right?
Yeah, but are they like a portion of the government, or are they just a separate community?
It's just a different community.
Okay, so then they're not a governmental body. So then
No.
the fact, so then do you not think like what is occurring here with the helicopter is the Commonwealth? Is that going to still be featured in the show as something completely different? And then whatever the hell Rick is dealing with in this situation with the helicopter is going to be its own thing.
I mean, the TV series is still lined up with how the comic books go right now.
Yeah, so that's why I'm a little confused about how the overlap's going to happen. But I don't know.
What do you mean by overlap?
Well, because if they're going to do the Commonwealth on in the movies and then also the Commonwealth on the TV show, like I don't know how that works.
Is it certain that it's going to be Commonwealth in the movies?
No, but like basically all that they've shown so far up until now with the helicopter and the AB and all that shit, that's directly ties to the Commonwealth in the comic books, right?
Well, sure. What they have said is that the story for those films is untold. There's it's untold, so there's nothing from the current universe that would necessarily be. And I'm sure they would have to borrow, maybe a thing here or there. It's hard to get it totally bespoke for that trilogy, but it's not anything that's in those comics in this show right now.
Gotcha.
Yeah, the AB thing has nothing to do with the Commonwealth, really.
I thought you said last week it did.
No, that was when we were like trying to, speculate what the AB meant.
Gotcha.
But no, I have no idea what that is.
Fine. All right. Well, I mean, I guess I'm excited for it, and I'm here for it. We'll see what happens. Like, look, do I need more Walking Dead? Probably not. Like, should they just worry about, like, what they're doing and figuring that shit out? Probably. Like, now even more so, I feel like Fear the Walking Dead has become the fucking redheaded stepchild of this universe, and I can only imagine is going to die a sad, slow death over the next, year and a half, where just no one gives a fuck about it. No one's paying attention to it. The fact that Andrew Chambliss and Ian Goldberg are now left, it seems like, to their own devices, and Scott Gimmel's not even involved at all. I'm terrified of what they're going to do with Fear the Walking Dead over the next, what is it, season 5? Are we at a half season, or are we at season 5? No, season 5. I can't even remember. I feel like my brain over the last, year, I've been collecting Walking Dead information for the last 8 years, and I just feel like as shit has gotten worse, my brain has just slowly started purging information pertaining to the Walking Dead universe, and I just can't remember any of it anymore. So I'm making room for other television. What?
I got a question about the movies. Are they doing just 3 movies, or are they doing a ton of different movies?
I don't know.
Yeah, it's 3 that's been pitched. At least that's what the knowledge that we have. The ones involving Lincoln directly would be 3 so far that we know of. There's also Gimple had hinted that on the Talking Dead, hey, I want to do prequels. I want to do from characters who are dead and gone to tell their backstories. Stories in other formats that we really can't even talk about right now is what he said.
Holographic 3D animation.
Hey, I mean, Kirkman stepped in with Telltale to finish up their series. Yeah.
Oh, I didn't know that. Is he paying for it?
Skybound stepped in.
Get out.
Yeah.
Well, that's noble.
Yep. It's a bit of a logistical nightmare, but he's putting the money behind it.
That's good. He has enough of it.
Right.
Okay, well, so yeah, that was kind of the somehow roundabout way of getting back to this. That was the point I was making before with Gimple and saying what he was saying, that there would be 3 movies, and then he was also talking about like past. We're going to tell stories past, present, and future characters, like living and non-living. And I was like, well, how does that all tie into Rick? That doesn't make any sense. But it sounds like there's going to be other things happening too. So I would not put another TV show like out the window in terms of what could possibly happen. For whatever reason, I feel like there could be another TV show in the works.
Yeah, I wouldn't.
Dare I say?
No, I wouldn't put like a limited series past him at this point. And I kind of would be a little interested, like an 8-episode like thing. I would do that. I'd watch it.
I almost like. I've kind of been saying for the last couple of years they need to switch this shit to like an American Horror Story style anthology series where each season it's different and they're telling new stories, because they always seem to succeed in terms of the short term storytelling. It's like when they try to like link things into a longer narrative over the course of multiple seasons, or when shit like totally flops and it just gets kind of torturous and tedious. But if you like neatly contain things within like an 8-episode or even a 10-episode arc, that is fine by me. Like, do that, and then like those characters are gone, call it a day, and we get new characters the next season, right?
Yeah.
So we'll see. But all right. What do you want to talk about in terms of this episode? I mean, there was obviously a lot that went on. I was excited going into it. I was getting Lovely Bone vibes when I saw the preview for the next episode when we were watching last episode, and I was like, oh, these dream sequences seem really cool. But then like I wasn't so bought into them as I was watching it. John, I know you had a lot to say about that. So
really, I got so many thoughts. How do you, Seb? Are you dead inside? Are you dead inside?
Yes, look, they had an emotional
search
impact.
yourself.
They had an emotional impact on me, but it was like it kind of felt. I don't know, like they just didn't really seem to have a purpose.
No, well, the purpose itself is Rick's the very like kind of inner workings of it is Rick's psyche telling him to get up, and it's self-preservation.
Yeah.
Outside of that, so that's the point. That's their purpose, is to keep Rick alive. The other side of that is you still get to see the performances that remind you of, at least reminded me of what that show was. I would watch John Bernthal read the fucking phone book, and I would probably like my heart would just start racing a little bit if he was going to read it like that. It's just sitting there in that cop car. You see the very easy chemistry between Bernthal and Andrew Lincoln, how their relationship worked, and it's like an old suit. It just slips right in there. Mm-hmm. And Shane he's not there to play nice. He's there to be Shane. He's there to tell him, hey man, I need that chew out a guy's throat, right? I need that red machete shit. That's the dude that I need right now. I need you to get mad. I need you to stay alive. Mm-hmm. These are parts of Rick's psyche that have been kind of augmented from his experiences. In the case of Shane, the expression, it's to take a life, not to give it away. You take it, you consume it. So part of that is in him, and Shane is in it as much says it like that's a page out of my book. Mm-hmm. Those things. Apart from just what the story is doing, I think you've got to appreciate how John Bernthal just comes in, hops in that seat, and just owns that time on screen. Yeah. Right. Yeah. Just so good, and I think there had to be little pieces of that on Lincoln's part that were ad-libbed a little bit. Do you see? They look like they were having such a great time doing that scene, right? They're having a lot of fun with that.
Eating them French fries.
Watch The Talking Dead, like they were making food. They had like a grill like on set, and they were making the food.
Oh, really?
Yeah. That was like, and John was just eating them fries. Like, yeah, I got this. These are good ass fries. Shit. And then for Herschel, it was hard to get through that one without like, I just need some Kleenex. No, I'm not crying. You're crying. While I will agree, the CGI of the farm, not great, man. Not great. No. Right? No. But I think it's to tell him, Rick is starting, at least he's wrestling with the idea internally, like, hey man, maybe it's time to lay it down. Maybe it's time to give up. Maybe it's time to just let somebody else handle this. And I think for Herschel, that part of that wisdom of him is to more gently push him to go on, but to call to his nature as a leader. It's not time. Sasha, why Sasha, guys?
That was gonna be my next question.
But like really, like we couldn't throw a couple extra bucks at Steven Yeun to just get him on a plane. Is that?
But I mean, did you read those recent interviews with him?
He doesn't want to be on the show like ever again, right?
Yeah, he was talking like mad shit about the show.
Yeah, he's like, I don't want to ever do this shit again. I'm like, okay.
Which is probably part of the motivating factor. Like, I don't know. I feel like you could have gone with like many different choices in lieu of Sasha. You know, you could have gone with a Chandler Riggs. You could have, which, you know,
right.
We all know that kind of drama there. So maybe
Scott, we know he's got a house in Atlanta
that is now vacant. Or, you know, Lori. They could have gone with that. I mean, there's endless options of who they could have went with. Sasha seemed like a bit of a strange choice.
I agree. Almost playing devil's advocate, I would argue that if the goal of these visions is to get him to keep going, I think if you put Lori up there, he's like, you know what? Carl's dead. Lori's dead. I'ma just die.
Well, yeah, and it had the recurring theme of like, I'm looking for my family, and then like obviously the big, wouldn't call it a twist. The surprise reveal at the end is like the family's talking about it isn't like a Carl and a Lori. It's the Michonne and Judith and all of his friends and whatnot.
Right.
So I guess Lori can't really be in those sequences, but I don't know. You could have gone with like an Abraham or something with someone with a little more charisma than Sasha. But did you hear Andrew Lincoln? I don't know how much of the Talking Dead you watched, but he likened these death sequences to the Wizard of Oz, apparently.
Right, yeah. The one is the heart, one is the something, one is the something.
Herschel's the heart, Shane is the courage, and Sasha is the wisdom, aka the brain. I don't know. I didn't necessarily get that. Like, again, like, I get it, but like at the end of the day, like it came down to, like you said, this internal thing going on in his own brain to wake up and continue going on, and that manifested in the shape of these different people or whatever representing different things. I kind of like the idea of like each person in this sequence kind of represented a different person of Rick, and each swung in such like one way or left or right. Like Shane was totally left, like, you know, he was the rip your throat out kind of guy, the red machete guy all the time. No ifs, ands, and ors about it. Herschel was the heart, and all the time, and kind of like annoyingly so, especially in like season 2 or whatever. See, again, Sasha, like I struggle with like the wisdom and the brain, whatever. But like these are each like 3 components of Rick that make him up as a person, and I kind of like that component of it. You know, he was a delicate balance of all 3.
No, I dig that. I like that. Yeah, I can buy in.
Thank you. And I also thought that it had more of a tie to like a Christmas Carol.
Yes.
Than it did to like the Wizard of Oz. Like I saw Shane as like the ghost of Christmas past. Herschel was kind of the ghost of Christmas present, and Sasha was like where they're standing in a field of dead bodies, and she's basically saying like, look, they're all dead and it's okay. You did your part, like I did mine. You know, we helped each other as best we could, and it is what it is, basically. Like that's why it gave me kind of like a Christmas Carol vibe to it, which so I was a little surprised to hear Wizard of Oz personally.
No, I agree.
Yeah, but who's to say?
Frankly, I didn't care. I just wanted to see the older characters. I was on such a high. I wanted to see a Beth. I wanted to see a T-Dog. I would even take a Jim.
Jim, the guy who died under a tree in season 1.
Peaceful light.
What if they brought back like a Jackie who like stayed in the CDC to get blown up? Or a Dale. Like a Dale would have been so nice.
The actor who played he would never go anywhere near that show. He's him and Stephen Yeun are like at a TGI Fridays and we're like, fuck that place.
You're right. I mean, I guess Sasha is maybe the best representation of wisdom / brain out of anyone remaining who would possibly come back to be on the show. Because I can't really think of anyone else that was like that intelligent in that way. But maybe like a Tyrese, maybe? I don't know. He's kind of lame in the show.
Yeah.
Not gonna lie. But, yeah. So, like, we talked about the CGI a little bit. I didn't really mind it because it was supposed to have kind of like that dream-like feel to it. So even though it looked like not realistic at all, it wasn't really supposed to. So I was like, okay, I can get down with this, I guess. I'll accept it for what it is. Yeah. And Dennis, to your point, talking about seeing like old characters like a Beth, what they kept saying like, what is your wound? And if you had the subtitles on, which I did, Morgan says the first one, what is your wound, when Rick is in the hospital. Lori says, what is your wound, leading into that scene with Shane. Beth says, what is your wound, leading into the scene with Herschel, and Abraham leading into the scene with Sasha. So if you had the subtitles on, it told you that, but if you didn't, you wouldn't have known. What do you think, John, was the significance of like the what is your wound question?
Well, the first is very literal, because it's from the first episode.
Yes.
Right, is very literal. Is Morgan like, hey man, just try to make sure you're not bit, otherwise I'ma shoot you. Mm-hmm. Then it sort of morphs. It sort of takes on new meaning through the repetition, where leading to what is your wound? If you're leading into Shane, what is your, not gripe, but what is your issue? What is the thing you're trying to overcome? Mm-hmm. Beth into Herschel, what is, what is the challenge you're looking to get over? It's, it becomes much more, it goes internal. It starts at Morgan, it's very external, and then by the end of it, mm-hmm. Abraham leading it, it's very much a spiritual question. What is your wound? What is broken in you?
Mm-hmm. I like
to me.
That. No, I would agree with you. That was kind of like, not as intelligent, but basically what I was thinking. So I like that. And I like that, I don't know if these characters actually voice these components. I don't know if like Sarah Wayne Callies actually voiced the Lori part, but the only one that actually sounded like their own character was Beth and Abraham. Lori and Morgan were like a little questionable. So I don't know. I kind of like that.
Lori was there. I just don't understand why they didn't put it on camera.
What do you mean she was there?
She was there on her Instagram. She
really?
Took pictures of behind the scenes. Yeah.
Oh, get out! I didn't realize that. That's cool. Maybe she filmed this scene and they decided not to use it. Because I mean, why else would she be there?
Yeah, I don't know.
I mean, she's just hanging out. I don't know. That's why they tried to spin John Bernthal. He's like, oh, I'm just hanging out on set. It's like, yeah, okay, sure you are. Because you have nothing better to do than to hang out on the set of The Walking Dead, I'm sure.
Yeah, and they did, just to clarify, they did voice their own. They did the voice for it. They're just uncredited in the full. In the full, like Lenny James, Michael Cudlitz, Emily Kinney, Sarah Wayne, Callies, all uncredited, but they're their voices.
Is that on the IMDb's?
It is indeed.
Oh man.
Oh fish.
Oh fish. So a couple other points with these like dream sequences. We talked about it a little bit last week, but the whole Sasha scene where they're standing in the field of dead bodies, that's basically an exact replica of the variant cover for issue 100 of the comics, and I thought they did a pretty fucking awesome job recreating that scene, and it was kind of fun to watch it and point out all the dead bodies of the people like we know and love on the show. I thought that was fun. I saw a little Jesus, a Maggie, I saw Tyrese, a Carl, a bunch of different ones. So
did you see Greg?
Yes, of course, Greg, and of course his stupid fucking face is right there up in the front. Like, he's so desperate. Like, I cannot stand that man.
Why are you so thirsty?
He is so thirsty. Not only is he, like, fucking in love with himself, but, like, anytime he directs an episode, he needs to be in it, and it needs to obviously be him. Like, it's so annoying. He always makes himself a future Walker, or, like, they literally, like, panned in on his fucking face in this episode. I'm just like, Greg, like, have some chill, please. Like, he's like that desperate type who, like, cannot help but he wants to be behind the camera, but he can't help but being in front of it either. Like, he's like, but if I'm behind the camera, people won't know that... You know, it's like he could never do a podcast because, God forbid, people didn't fucking see his face. I'm sorry. I have really built up aggression towards Greg Nicotero. I don't know why. Him and Scott Gimple, they both have very punchable faces. Do they not?
I don't know.
I don't know. I can't help but, like, I feel like those two together destroyed this show. Like, if I could point to, like, one or two people who I feel like, other than, like, AMC executives, obviously, like, one or two people who destroyed this franchise, it's them, easily, hands down.
Yeah.
Yep, they made the best episode of this whole show.
Which one?
This episode? What are you talking about?
I don't understand why you think this is the best episode of this entire show.
I don't understand why you don't think this is the best episode.
John, where do you net in terms of the best episode of this entire show?
You know, mom and dad are fighting. I don't think the kids should really have to split the decision. I think best episode all time. I don't know. The Grove is pretty up there for me, but I think you know what I mean. But this is strong. From where they had winnowed themselves down to in terms of options, in terms of cast, in terms of just available people to build this storyline into what it needed to be in light of the circumstances. You know, your lead man, your number one on the call sheet, wants out. Mm-hmm. How do you do it? Also, he needs to live because we have a lucrative film deal here in the works.
Yeah.
All right. So all of that stacked up, and I think the narrative is pretty compelling. I think the performances are pretty on point here. You know, Lincoln sure as hell gives it 110% out there. I don't see anybody kind of dogging it. Denai Guerrera in this one is, you know, I think pretty phenomenal. The choices that her character makes and that she sells, both with, like, giving the keys to Maggie and then the end, which he thinks Rick is dead. You know, Norman's Daryl out there at the end shooting arrows at. I had an emotional response to Daryl's arrows hitting those walkers.
I did too.
Right? Because he's like, that is Daryl's version of, like, screaming at him to run.
Yeah.
That's as much as he can say, like, I love you and I want you to live. Get the hell out of there. And he's still not. Mm-hmm. So I think all of that makes this a pretty damn, you know, strong hour of primetime television.
Yeah, no, I agree. Like, I'm not trying to, like, totally shit on the episode. Like, I think it was good. I don't think it was, like, fucking amazing. There are definitely those, like, emotional high points that really make the episode what it is. Specifically, the Daryl scenes, the Maggie, Michonne, Negan scenes I thought were really good. Andrew Lincoln's performance throughout the entire thing was good. You know, there's just, like, the little things, like the gasoline, or not the gasoline, the dynamite. Conveniently sitting on the bridge that you would never want to be destroyed, but there it is. It's there for whatever reason.
Of your wooden bridge. Like, why would you even need dynamite? Whose idea was it?
I don't know. Like, Dennis, you were saying that the dynamite was from the Saviors.
Oh, yeah, I think we talked about that earlier. I could have sworn I saw it when they were starting to build a bridge with that one dude, the dude that knocked over the water boy, who was constantly having trouble.
Yeah, Justin.
Okay.
Was he... So, I vaguely remember with the dynamite, Daryl starts to beat up Justin because... Wait, no. Justin was supposed to do an air horn. He wasn't supposed to blow up Dynamite. Because remember how Justin gets in trouble for not doing his signal to divert the herd or whatever, and that's when Aaron's arm gets fucking crushed or whatever.
Oh.
And he ends up getting thrown out by Rick. I thought, he was supposed to set off a charge that would attract the herd and make sure that they didn't merge or whatever, or come into the camp, and he didn't do it, and that's why he got in trouble. But now that I remember, Jerry was sitting there doing the fucking the raid alarm or whatever, and I think that guy was just supposed to do that. So this Dynamite literally is just sitting there for no reason. It makes no sense. The random Dynamite. And Dynamite also doesn't set on fire, does it?
No, I mean, it explodes.
It's a concussive. It's not an explosive, right?
I'm not really up on the physics of dynamite.
I just think it's supposed to bring down rock and rubble. It's not supposed to fucking set things on fire, as far as I know. Like, it's used in like mining and shit like that. Why would you want it to ever set anything on fire? It doesn't make any sense. But whatever. I digress. And John, I would just like to point out, because you and I had a little bit of a chatty chat in episode 2, The Bridge, when we talked about the levees, right?
Yes.
Going back to that, they built their own levees to slow down the water so that they could put the posts into the water to build the bridge. And then the levees broke, and that's why the water's rushing again.
That makes sense.
That's what I think. I know we were like mildly confused about that.
Yeah, I'm like, did they? Did they do that? Yeah,
well,
okay, they did. All right, yeah.
Well, because of course we're trying to translate Eugeneese, so trying to figure out whatever the fuck Eugene is saying on a daily basis is always difficult. But that's what I'm going to call it going forward. Eugeneese. That's Eugene.
Fun.
Eugene's language.
Random fun fact, Jason Douglas, our very own Tobin, also uncredited, but appeared.
He did?
That's according to the IMDb. Maybe he was in the Sea of Bodies.
Oh, maybe. Is he dead or is he alive in the show?
Tobin dead.
Oh, yeah, he died. That was during that other shit show at the Hilltop.
So many shit shows.
There are so many. If you look back the last few seasons, it really is just, it's a travesty.
I mean, just all the more remarkable about what Angela Kang has managed to do here.
I know. I am still blown away by the fact that she's been able to put together 5 pretty solid episodes here. And, looking at the previews for the next 3, like, what's to come, the rest of the season, like, those look fucking awesome too. So, kind of have high hopes. We'll see, though.
Right.
So, in terms of... let's talk about the Maggie Negan and Michonne interactions. Personally, I thought this was one of the stronger scenes of the entire episode, that whole Maggie and Michonne interaction. And I thought Maggie was basically saying what we were all thinking, and she presented it in a way to Michonne where Michonne didn't really have a defense. Like, she literally cat got your tongue with Michonne, because Maggie's like, okay, like, you tell me to live with it, I can't live with it, and I've tried to live with it for 1.5 years. And then Michonne's like, well, you're just gonna have to. And Maggie's like, well, what else would you like me to do, because I can't do it? And Michonne's like, got me, here are the keys.
Touche.
But I thought it was just such like a raw emotional scene, like just like even like the single tear that drips down Michonne's face was so like perfectly executed in that scene. I was like, holy fuck. Like, I was literally tearing up watching that scene.
Yeah, I mean, Cohen, she sells it, right? There's a lot of truth in that moment. Because Maggie, I think, puts it on Michonne. Like, if this were you in your situation, like, he'd be in pieces, and he would be.
Yeah.
He would have never, he'd have never been locked up, homie. He'd be in a delicatessen. We'd be serving slices of him. Maggie's grief and her still very palpable rage, like, come through pretty clearly. And I think Michonne really realizes that, oh, this bitch is gonna go through me.
Mm-hmm.
And like either what comes then? What I draw the sword and I kill her, or she kills me, and then what? You know, that's a horrible kind of world-ending sequence of events. That's arguably one of the most important things and decisions that happens in this episode. If Michonne doesn't give way, we might have some decisions to make here. Like one of them is not leaving, or maybe both of them. Who knows?
Yeah.
But then once Maggie gets inside, you know.
I thought that was. I was a little bit intrigued, and I wasn't fully maybe grasping what was going on in that scene. I liked the Negan dark versus Negan in the light kind of imagery that they were playing with there. It seemed like in the dark he was kind of taunting Maggie. He was still like the Negan that we've known from the last couple of seasons, like basically saying he got enjoyment out of killing Glenn. And then, you know, Maggie wants to see him in the light, and when we finally see him in the light, we see him for like what he is now, which is just some dude begging for death. For whatever reason, has a really bad haircut. I don't really know exactly what's going on with that situation. And basically, he's begging to die. I wasn't sure if we were supposed to interpret that as Negan in the darkness was taunting Maggie so that she would kill him, or was he like trying to intimidate her? Like, what was your read in that whole situation?
Yeah, I think it's a goading, because the real that taunting is a facade. The real who Negan is now just wants it to be over. He can't be caged. He can't wither there. It's so anti to who he is that he's just dying on the vine in there.
Yeah. No, I definitely agree with that. It seemed like she was trying to, or he was trying to convince her to kill her in any way, like build up that rage in her so that she would pull the trigger faster. I wasn't sure if she was planning on smashing his head in with the crowbar or if she was planning on shooting him.
You know, probably more. She's more poetic that way.
Yeah, I agree. I think she got that crowbar specialty made,
right?
For a reason. She wasn't gonna waste it there. I thought the crowbar was made so that she could break in to the prison. I thought that was the purpose of it, but I think the Talking Dead even said like Maggie requested that the crowbar be built to the same size of Lucille or something like that.
Yeah, the prop guys built it. It's the same size as the bat.
Yeah, which is just a very large crowbar.
Right?
Could you imagine having a crowbar the size of a baseball bat? Like that's fucking huge.
It's a Louisville Slugger. Like, what are you trying to do?
Seems really unnecessary, but yeah, and I think it says a lot about, you know, Negan's kind of psyche in this moment when he's literally out of his cell and he could, I guess, overpower Maggie in that moment if he wanted to, and Maggie literally says, "Get your ass back in your cell," and he literally walks his ass back into the cell and closes the damn door on himself. I was like, damn, this is a really sad Negan.
But I think then Maggie comes around to Rick's plan in that moment. It is worse, right?
It's working, right?
Right. He's powerless here, dying in this tiny 8x8. He can do no harm, and he can't be a symbol for anyone.
Yep.
You kill him, he's a martyr, and then they can make him into whatever lionized version of his memory they want.
No, that whole section was also in the comic books, set up differently, but
that was recent, right?
Yeah.
It was like issue 174. Like it happened like last week or something in the comics.
No, this was maybe like 10 issues back.
Oh, okay. What do you recall, like what the scenario was there?
They set Negan free. He goes off. Maggie finds him and pretty much plays out exactly how it played out in this episode.
So why they set Negan free? Well, wasn't Negan free after the Whispers?
He helped out, and after that whole situation ended, that's when I think they told him to get out.
Oh,
Rick was just like, you can't be here, but you can.
Can't go home, but you can't stay here.
Yeah. That's what I was trying to. That's what I was trying to come up with. So then, in terms of just one random thing, because they focused on it, and I wasn't entirely sure what they were showing. When Michonne is talking to Judith in the beginning of the episode, and she's drinking coffee or whatever, and then there's a coffee ring that's left on the piece of paper that looks like maybe the church or something like that. Was that supposed to symbolize something, or was it merely a coffee ring? But they like focused the camera on it.
They're like, hey guys, it's a symbol right here. Look.
Well, she even like shakes it out. She's like, oh gosh, it's wet.
I guess. Sure. It's a circle. Life. It's on a church. God is a circle. I don't know.
Marriage.
Love. True love. I don't know.
Come on, John.
I got nothing, man. It's a coffee stain on a blueprint. Can we just, guys? Not everything. All right, we don't have to have a deep introspection about it. It's not like Jesus on a piece of toast, okay?
No, but I'm sure if you ask Scott Gimple, that coffee ring represents the continuation of this universe for the next 10 years.
Oh, God.
Circles have been known to... No, it would be some bullshit that he came up with, I'm sure. For some reason, I feel like someone said something about it, but I don't remember what it was.
Yeah, it was called out like a little bit in The Talking Dead, but again, I was just a little. It was so surface that it didn't register in my brain.
Yeah, and you had drunk Melissa McBride. I was.
Man, did she have a green room cocktail, huh?
She was like hammered or something. She was fucking on Looney Tune land.
She's just giggly and like hee hee. Oh God, it's live TV. I gotta shut up. Rain it in, Melissa.
They had the guest like come out and like ask a question or whatever, and I think he asked about the like flash forward sequence or whatever. Yeah. And she was like, am I allowed to talk about that? Like she didn't know like it aired, so she didn't want to give away spoilers or whatever about the flash forward because she didn't know it was at the end of this episode. I guess like these people just don't watch the show.
No, and I wouldn't either. Yeah.
Why?
Why? I don't like, I don't go home and run my own e-commerce website. You know what I mean? Like I'm not. I don't run a dropship company on the side. Like I don't.
Yeah, I guess I never thought about it like that. Like, I don't know. I feel like you would want to watch yourself, right?
Like when I got out of grad school, you know what I didn't want to do? Read a goddamn thing. And like I didn't for like a year and a half. I'm like, no books. Books are stupid.
Fair enough. But I don't know. I feel like if you're like an actor, part of becoming like a better actor is like watching yourself do what you get paid to do.
Sure. Like it's Studio City, like at the... on set with all the banks of cameras, like, hey, does that take good? Can we do something else? I think that's where the craft is. Watching yourself with the finished product after the fact, that's a little self-indulgent.
I guess. It's like, how do you come on this show and talk about it when you don't even know what the fuck they actually aired? Like, how many scenes do they film that never actually make the show?
A few. A few.
Well, it's like, so Melissa McBride just comes on the show and tells like a completely alternate universe of like what actually occurred in the episode. She's like, oh, I filmed those scenes, so blah blah blah.
Depends on how many cocktails are available before the Hardwick kept feeding me the hard stuff, and I was.
She is on my list of like person to have a drink with or like smoke a blunt with.
Just gonna. Just hit a spliff and just ridiculous. Just
I feel like she would just be so much fun.
Gravity Bone rips with Melissa McBride.
Yeah, and she's gonna be all hippy dippy now.
Right.
Elvin Carroll in this flash forward. So maybe she's
Bow and Arrow Carroll.
Yeah, Bow and Arrow Carroll. So what else we got here? Last but not least, so after obviously Rick leads the herd over to the bridge. It doesn't collapse and whatnot, and then he ends up having to blow it up by shooting the dynamite. Cool. And somehow Rick gets blown into the water. I'm not entirely sure how that happened, seeing as he wasn't even standing on the bridge, but, whatever. And then we have the whole sequence with Jadis where At the beginning of the episode, she lies to the helicopter pilots, says that she has an A, and that she's at this particular location ready to be picked up. And it sounds like she's lied to them before, because he basically says, if you're lying to me, there will be consequences. Have we seen that situation where Jadis has lied to these helicopter people, or is this like a completely separate situation that we have not seen before?
I mean, technically, didn't she lie to them last episode when she's like, I've got a dude. Oh, I decided not to bite him.
Oh, I wasn't sure if that was like the same, like, I thought like when she called in that she had a person, and then deciding to let him go, and then finding Rick, that was like all in the sequence of like this helicopter has not come yet to pick up her package.
Yeah, it's pretty poorly, of all the things that are like well done in this episode, this is one of like the clunkiest bits.
Yeah, a little bit. Or maybe they're talking about the situation, I think last season, when we actually see the helicopter up close and personal, and Jadis is like trying to wave it down. I think at that point she either had Rick or Gabriel at one point. Maybe she called the helicopter and said like, I have a person, and then obviously he got away. And maybe the helicopter got all pissed off. I don't know. Like, what is going on with the fucking helicopter?
Watch the movies, man.
Yeah, I guess so. So it's like, are we not seeing Jadis like ever again?
I guess Jadis just got a movie deal.
Yeah, I guess so. Lucky her. There's no possible way they have her come back and not Rick, right?
No, because Michonne would be like, where were you?
For the last 6 years.
Right. I'm going to pull out this sword and start a chopping until you tell me where Rick is.
Yeah. Jadis is definitely gone. And then she lies. She says, I have a B, not an A. I never had an A. I'm trying to save a friend who saved me. Do we have a deal? Was she lying to them? I guess.
Yeah, this is too much code, man. I don't have enough information here to really, like, understand what's happening. A B, an A, a BM, a what? I don't know.
Well, last time we were talking about, we thought, like, A's were people with leadership qualities, and B were people that were more of, like, a follower or whatever.
Sure, an alpha and a beta. Sure.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, exactly. There you go. So... but that doesn't really, I don't really understand, like, because why would she lie to them then and say that Rick is a B, not an A, when he really is an A, and, like, who really fucking cares? But it obviously means something, so.
Right.
I guess we'll just have to wait and find out. And then Courtney and I were watching it, and she's like, where are they going? And I said, they're flying off to Hollywood to make movies. And she was like, what? And I was like,
what?
I was like, don't ask.
Next stop, Rodeo Drive.
Yeah. Next stop, the big screen.
Hello, show business?
We're going to get your names in flashing lights, right? Oh, gosh. And I like that they played Space Junk, which is the song they played at the very end of episode 1 of season 1 when Rick is stuck in the tank. I thought that was kind of like a nice little full circle. See? Full coffee stain circle moment. It all ties in. It all ties in. So, yeah, that's kind of it. Right? I mean, we flash forward. We get the introduction of Magna and her group, which was obviously a very big moment in the comic books. And we get the introduction of Judith Grimes. I thought it was a smart idea okay, so they've definitely figured their shit out here because, and when I say they, I mean AMC. It was smart of them to do this in episode 5 instead of a mid-season finale. Due to the fact that if they had done it in a mid-season finale, it gives people even more motivation not to come back. So I'm glad they learned their lesson there. And then making the decision to add that additional like 2 minutes of episode to where they flash forwarded 6 years, introduce Magna, and then also introduced an aged up Judith. Also a very smart idea, because if you had just left it on Rick getting taken away by a helicopter, people could literally walk away from the show and be like, this is the end of it, whatever. now they've introduced another component into the show that would hopefully intrigue people to come back next week. Do I think they're going to? Probably not. But was it smart? Yes, I think so.
Yeah, I think they've done everything they can to bring people back. I don't know what more they could have done in this situation.
Yeah. I mean, how screwed do you think they are?
Oh, which is such a shame because I really like, and I'm almost a fan of this show again, like with what Kang has done here, with what Angela Kang is doing with this season. I mean, hell, she figured out a use for Daryl.
Yeah.
Right? You were like, Norman Reedus can talk? Well, why don't we give him lines?
I know, he could actually deliver those lines.
Right? It turns out the kid's got some chops. But what I think is unfortunate is that we're going to see this viewership drop, and I think we're going to see it drop by a whole goddamn lot, right at a point where I think it's going to get interesting, which is a shame.
Yep, I agree. But, they kind of did it to themselves, so...
Yeah, it's self-inflicted. You're right.
Yeah, so I don't feel that bad, honestly. And I find it very strange that at this point in time, this is when they've decided to expand the universe even further. Why, when your ratings are suffering on both shows, your primary actors are leaving for other things, you're let's make 3 movies and let's possibly do another spinoff and, do whatever. It seems kind of a weird situation. Does it seem like a desperate attempt to revive the franchise?
I don't know if you would. I don't think you can spend the money on what's going to be bigger budget feature length films and call that desperate, because that's a pretty hefty financial risk for any studio now, because you can't make a flop. It has to make money. If it doesn't, you're going to be out of business. Mm-hmm. So I don't think this is desperate. I think this is calculated.
Is the funding the same compared to if it was actually going in theaters?
I believe so, yeah. Gimple said these aren't going to be just long episodes of The Walking Dead. They're going to be feature length in scope and in budget.
But more commercials. No. They're going to sell that shit like the Super Bowl.
Or they'll put it right on their own streaming. And
oh, God. You have to sign up for AMC Premiere for $5. I don't get that. Even FX. They're sign up $5 a month for ad free. I'm like, bitch, I already pay $100 a month for fucking cable. What the? I'm not paying you $5 to not watch commercials.
It's because you're one of the only. You're the 5th person left who still does that though.
You don't pay for the actual cable?
I pay $20 for my cable.
With what?
I have a basic package plus HBO that I got on a deal 3 years ago, and I've just never gotten rid of it.
From Comcast?
Yeah.
Yeah, but my price keeps going up every goddamn year.
Mine, I do the ritual call and threaten to go somewhere else every year.
I do that too. Half the time they're all right, go fuck yourself.
Damn. Savage.
This podcast is not sponsored by Comcast. Xfinity.
We would love it. We'd love anyone to sponsor.
No, I'm a strange fan of Xfinity these days. I think they're doing some cool shit. I like everything integrates now. I can access my Netflix, I can access Pandora, Amazon, everything through the Xfinity box. I don't know. I personally like it. I think it's cool.
Again, you're you're one of the 10 people still using Pandora. There's just real low.
It's not. I'm not using Pandora. It's just there. So it's I'm cleaning the house. I want to turn some music on. I turn it on the TV. Right? Shut up. I don't even listen to that bitch music. Okay. If I'm listening to anything, I'm listening to a podcast, and I don't think we're on Pandora. But whatever. So one last point here that I want to talk about is Lauren, a.k.a. Maggie. Is she out? Is she done? I know there was rumors that she was only going to be around for 5 or 6 possible episodes, but based off of what we saw in this last episode, it kind of seems like her story came to a perfect conclusion in this episode. It would feel strange if she was there for the 6-year flash forward only to leave in that episode.
Yeah, I mean, it's going to be interesting, right? So she's not credited in our next episode upcoming. Not in the cast for this next one for Who Are You Now? If she's going to have one more, I think that'd be interesting. But I don't think we're really focused on the Hilltop that much. We have Callum McAuliffe, who plays Alden, who was kind of a budding pseudo-romantic interest for Maggie, right? He's credited in the cast here. So we could be going there, and we might be getting some information from that. We've got, Kari Payton's in this one. Avi Nash, Sadiq is going to be here too. I don't see anybody else from Hilltop. Well, Tom Payne. So you got Tom Payne, Jesus. You got Callum McAuliffe, Alden. So you might be able to have a flash to Hilltop and get a sense of like, okay, we're running things, and remember that time Maggie went on a trip and never came back? I don't know.
Remember that lady Maggie?
I wonder where she was swell.
Yeah, I think they're gonna do exactly that. I think they're gonna, all those letters that Georgie has been sending Maggie. I think Maggie is going to probably take Herschel and go to wherever Georgie is, and quote unquote live with her until Whiskey Cavalier goes off the air and Lauren Cohen wants to come back to The Walking Dead. But yeah, I think this was probably her last episode. I don't think we're going to see her again until supposedly season 10. That is what I've heard around the rumor mill. So she will be returning for season 10, supposedly. Unconfirmed, but
do you think we're going to get that letter still?
Probably, like, that'll be like the thing Jesus like reads 6 years later. Like, Maggie's been missing for 6 years. Let me read this letter. No.
Guys, anybody seen Maggie?
I mean, it does seem like a really good conclusion to her story, at least for now, with kind of coming to terms with keeping Negan alive. And, it makes sense for her character to move on to something else as her way of being able to cope with the situation. She kind of expresses multiple times in this episode that she has not been able to cope. She can't move on. So it makes kind of perfect sense that she would try to relocate for the time being to figure her shit out and get it together and do whatever. Right?
Yeah. Existential crisis would follow that. Pretty step 1, step 2, step 3.
Yep. So, and I think we could officially write off now with the 6-year flash forward. We can officially say goodbye to Heath, ever returning. We could say goodbye to Dwight, ever returning, and Sherry, ever returning. Fare thee well, characters.
You think Dwight's gone forever?
Yes. I mean, I've already heard that he has not been like talking about like offset or on set kind of things. Like, he has not been seen filming. From my understanding, he's been written off the show. Damn.
I think
we don't need another angsty fucking motorcycle rider. We already got enough in Daryl Dixon, and I'm fully on Team Daryl. Like, this is the first time maybe in the history of this podcast that I have said I am Team Daryl, Team Norman Reedus, but I fully support him. He's been killing it this season, and look at that. They finally gave him some fucking lines, not just grunts and growls and meows and whatever the fuck else he's been doing for the last 3 seasons. He can actually be a pretty interesting character when they try. So,
dude, I mean, when he started, tearing up and crying at the bridge, I'm like, I gotta leave the room.
Oh, yeah.
Shit.
Yeah. I was biting my lower lip.
He just walked off like holding that crossbow like nothing in the world fucking mattered.
He also had, Courtney was like, does this guy have like infinite arrows? Like, what the fuck? I'm like, yeah, basically.
Yeah, he only fired like 4.
I don't know. They seem to go on forever. All right, let's jump into episode ratings, and we have a little bit of feedback if you guys have time.
Sure.
All right. So last week, Brian rated episode 4, The Obliged, a 4.75, a really low 4.75. Dennis, you rated that a 5, and I rated that a 7.901. John, what do you rate this week's episode? What comes after?
This is an 8.5. It's an 8.5.
Okay, not too bad. Dennis, a 10.
You guys made some good points.
Oh.
CGI. There was also Dynamite and Rick not landing in the water supposedly. This is gonna shatter the glass ceiling. This is a 10.
So somehow you love the episode, and then we introduced counterpoints, and it still remained at a 10. So were you like originally rating it like a 15, and then we dropped you down to a 10?
I didn't know we can go past 10.
Well, one would assume if you thought it was perfect and then we convinced you otherwise, you would not still be rating it a 10. But whatever. All right, we'll take it. 10's a little dramatic for me. I'm trying to think of this in like the context of the entire season. I think I'll put it like the second best episode of the season, so I'll give it like an 8.197. Yeah, that's a good rating.
Yeah.
All right, let's jump into feedback. If you guys want to email us feedback, you can do so twdepodcaster@gmail.com, or you can go on our Facebook page, facebook.com/fandomfound, or send us a tweet @fandomfound on Twitter. First up, we have Jonathan Walker. He says, I actually don't know what to think about the helicopter rescue because of this. Wouldn't Rick want to get back to his family whenever he is healthy again? Is he going to stay in whatever community he goes to? I mean, I like that they do leave it a bit open, but man, I hope Jadis or Anne or whatever her name is gone. Well, Jonathan, you're just going to have to watch the feature-length movie to find out all of those details. He says, I'm glad for the time jump. No need to stay around wondering who's going to take over. Just do it and get on with the season. One last thing. Could AMC not get Glenn to come back instead of Sasha? Drop the ball there, guys. I think the Shane scene was the best. Yeah, I mean, we kind of talked about Steven Yeun doesn't really have the nicest things to say about The Walking Dead, so that's probably explains why he didn't end up coming back. And there's just like a lot of bad blood with majority of the actors that have left this show, so that part's kind of sad. I'm not gonna lie. It would have been nice to see Glenn, but you know, whatever. Apparently, Andrew Lincoln was complaining that Glenn's death was too graphic.
Yeah. Yes, that's actually in the New York Times interview as well. That he would take that back. It was a bit excessive, in his opinion. That he would have, if it had been him behind the camera, he would have just done it all with Maggie's face as the point of focus.
Yeah, but I don't know. That's one of the iconic scenes in The Walking Dead. I mean, I will say it's like a little bit jarring in the context of the show because it's not something that ever really happened before. I'd say the graphic novel was pretty graphic even before that, especially with the governor parts, because the governor was way worse in the comics than he is in the show. So, for all intents and purposes, the show was way more tame than the comic ever was. So, you know, taking all that into account, maybe the scene was a little bit graphic. I could only imagine like the people who had no idea like that was going to happen. Just seeing their faces probably would have been priceless in that way. But you know, I'm a desensitized millennial, so what do I know? I was having this fight with my boss the other day about the new Halloween movie. Have either of you guys seen it?
Have not.
You should. But it's fun. So it's like I was basically saying, like the original, you watch this, it's an hour and a half movie, and the first hour he doesn't kill anyone, and I'm like, what the fuck? Like, this is stupid. And in this new one, I said, oh, it's great. Like, it's super gory. You know, there's a lot of killings, and it's a lot of fun. And he's like, oh no, see, I don't like that kind of stuff. Like, blah blah blah. That's why the original was so good. And I'm just like, desensitized millennial here. I need to see my gruesome violence.
More cowbell.
Yes, more cowbell. All right, so Thomas says, first, so many questions won't get answered pertaining to the stories and emotions of characters through the first 5 episodes. Daryl and Maggie get let off the hook. They absolutely betrayed Rick. How do you feel about that, John?
Well, Maggie didn't kill Negan, so no betrayal there. You could really argue, if you wanted to be discerning about it, that Daryl does set the events in motion that ultimately lead to this, to Rick leaving.
Yeah.
Daryl sets.
We want to blame Daryl for another
right.
death on this show.
Daryl kind of sets it in motion a bit. But
I guess they both do because they both kind of plan this.
Yeah.
Right.
But at the end, Rick doesn't hold them accountable for that. He doesn't. By the end, it's two brothers agreeing. Like, it could have been a "we'll settle this later." It could have been it could have been anything else, but it wasn't betrayal. Rick wasn't betrayed at the end, and he didn't feel that way.
True. I mean, he did scream as the helicopter was flying away. Damn you, Daryl and Meg.
Right. He was waving a fist with his Rolex. I'll kill you.
Out the window. Out the window of the helicopter. All right. He says, second, they picked the absolute worst way to write off Rick's character. He isn't dead, so his story isn't finished. They didn't do him any justice. Rick was supposed to die in the explosion. If not the explosions, he definitely was supposed to drown due to his injuries. Also, Rick saw the helicopter during All Out War and didn't mention it to any of the communities for almost 2 years. Did he ever mention the helicopter at all to anyone? I don't think he did.
Well, the character, there's a couple things that is interesting about that because Thomas, you assume that the character doesn't have a life. The only life that the character has is the one that you see, right? They're living outside of when we're able to view them. For the hour or so that we view them each week, other things happen. Granted, it's you don't get to see all of that. By that logic, Rick has never taken a shit. Why? We've never seen him take a shit. That things, you have to. These things happen. But what would be the conversation? I saw a helicopter. Yeah, where'd it go? I don't know. Who was piloting it? I don't know.
I don't know. That's a pretty big thing, though, man. Like, that would be an important topic of conversation, especially in this world. Like, how often are you seeing a helicopter? Like, we see helicopters and planes every day, but in the apocalypse after 3 years, like, you're not seeing helicopters on a daily basis.
Sure. But it wasn't. But it wasn't.
Yeah, but again, you can't, say... I mean, if you say, what are they going to do about it? Like how John said.
Yeah.
You just
look in the skies.
A dinner conversation about
But I just need to understand, that's what you'd like the episode to be about then, is them sitting around having a conversation about when they saw a helicopter for no reason. And then what do they do?
Pillow talk.
They round up a helicopter posse and what? They go looking for a helicopter? Wait, don't we need to eat? Aren't resources limited? Shouldn't somebody be, gardening? Nah, we gotta look for this helicopter.
Look at Taka on Fear the Walking Dead. That bitch shot down a helicopter.
He did. Let's see.
They just need to take a page out of Taka's book. Just shoot that shit down.
He isn't dead. Story. They didn't do him any. Rick was supposed to die in the explosion. Well, he wasn't supposed to. He didn't die. He was definitely supposed to drown. That didn't happen either. So he's not supposed to do anything other than what happens, because we're not telling the story. They are.
You're right, but I think he's saying his preferred. I agree. I wish Rick died. That's the end of the day. Rick should be dead. But Thomas, movies, come on.
Right. I'm just, Andy's trying to get paid. All right. Let Andy get his money. Let Andy get his money. All right. He doesn't come to your job and tell you he can't feed your kids. All right. He's got a family.
Right. He says third, unnecessary time jump to make up for the death of Carl and make Judith a character. Where did they find Judith a mini sword? How did they find Rick's gun? And she is not strong enough to shoot that gun. Oh, look at that, John.
I agree. You're not wrong, Thomas. You're not wrong. And you're handsome. You're handsome and you're not wrong.
Episode rating 4.2, but I'm somewhat intrigued about the rest of the season. Well, we already talked about why we think the time jump makes sense. At least from my perspective, I think it's really the only thing that they could have done.
Yeah.
So you're not watching fucking 6 years of people sulk around talking about Rick. And I think it's a great idea that they make Judith a main character. I've been calling for the death of Judith since she was born in season 2 or season 3, whatever the fuck she came around. But, seeing that she's the last remaining Grimes left, I think it's important that they make her a focused character. Now, are they child actors are notoriously not that great? There's some good ones, some not great ones. What I've seen of this girl in the previews for the coming episodes, I'm not super convinced that she's leading lady material. Not to say she's going to be a leading lady, but I don't know. I'm not super bought into her yet. I'm not trying to be a dick to a little kid, but I find her voice a little bit irritating. And this is coming from someone who also has an irritating voice, so I can say this. But I don't know. Her voice is a little grating and a little squeaky. I don't know if you guys agree.
Man, I don't know. She's got a Star Wars credit.
Yeah, she was young Rey or something, right?
Right. I don't know. JJ saw something in her.
All right. Well, Dennis, how do you feel about that?
We'll wait.
Yeah, that's...
Dennis is not a. Dennis has some issues with the recent Star Wars movies, right, Dennis? Oh wait, no, you liked it.
No,
Ryan.
liked him. Ryan's the one that hates him.
All right, so that was it. Last up, we have Steven. Oh, and someone rebutted to Thomas about the mini sword, and don't forget, the Hilltop has a blacksmith, so maybe they made her a sword.
Yeah, it's in the Japanese tradition. That's a short. It pairs with the katana. So
yeah, look at Arya. She has needle. Okay.
Right.
All right. Last up is Steven. He says that was the slowest zombie herd I have ever seen. I don't know when you've seen a fast zombie herd.
Wrong universe.
There is 0% chance that Rick would have been able to get up off that concrete block. 0% chance that the horse would have been there. Either it runs or gets eaten. 0% chance he stays awake as much as he was. 0% chance that a guy in that condition is firing headshots and hitting that dynamite, which is on the bridge. Why? 0% chance the whole gang shows up when they did, including the helicopter. 0% chance that he is still alive after being blown off the bridge. And 0% chance that helicopter trusts Jadis after her lying to them. BS finale 4.4. Well, it wasn't a finale. Right. Maybe it was a finale for you, Steven, because maybe you're not coming back. But I'm sure you are, because you listen to all the podcasts. So I'm sure you are, and we need your commentary every week. But I don't know. Yeah, I didn't have this many problems with the episode. Did you find it unbelievable that he was able to pull himself off the rebar?
No, I mean, mothers pick up cars if their kids are trapped under it all the time. Extraordinary circumstances breed extraordinary acts. Mm-hmm. He has to do that. He doesn't have any other choice. His family's on the line. That's it.
Yep. I mean, I agree with the horse. I feel like it would not have just been standing there.
No.
In multiple instances. When he got out of that cabin, I was like, there's no way this horse is standing there. It is going to be Ian. And that fucking horse was standing there.
That's, this is you understand that first interaction with Shane. I need you to be the dude that bit a guy's throat out. Right?
Yep.
That's who Rick Grimes is. At parts, he's a guy who can bite someone's throat out. If I don't have any other weapon left, I will chew your neck to death. You don't think he can pull himself off rebar with his man teeth that aren't designed to do the thing he just did?
Oh no, yeah, you're right. Definitely agree.
Yeah, it's also a show about where dead people come to life,
right?
And feed on flesh. So.
Guys, yeah, suspend your disbelief a little bit.
That's everyone's rebuttal.
But Dennis ain't wrong. It's I mean,
no, I know. I feel like I said that to one of you over the last 2 days.
Probably, but it's true though. You're right. There's a 0% chance of all this would have happened. You're right. If somebody stabbed me with rebar, I'd be like, "Can I go lay down? I'm done."
Yeah. He lost. He lost a lot of blood. He probably would have been dead a lot faster than he was. But he's Rick Grimes, all right. He cannot be killed that easily. All right, so next week's episode is called Who Are You Now? That's episode 6. It says the survivors encounter unfamiliar faces outside the safety of their community walls and must decide whether or not this new group can be trusted. So I don't know if you haven't seen the trailer for the next 3 episodes. They did one giant combined one. I definitely suggest you check it out on YouTube or something because it looks fucking awesome, and I have high hopes for what's to come. Can't say the same for the ratings, but I'm very interested to see what the drop off is for episode 6.
Oh man.
I feel like you have your loyal fan. Like, I just don't know. Like, if we're getting 5 million viewers, do you really think that many people are going to drop off? Like, if they're still here at this point, I just don't see them going anywhere. I feel like your 5 million is your baseline. It's not going to go any lower than that.
Dead silence. Well, you're right. Cricket. Well, let's just see. Let's see.
All right, fine. We'll see. We could talk about that next week when this episode airs. And then we could also see what the ratings are. You know, when we record on Monday night, the ratings don't usually come out until like Tuesday, I think. So I'm interested to see if like this giant marketing attempt for Rick Grimes. Last week we guessed, Ryan guessed it would be 7. Dennis, you guessed 5. I guessed 5.7 million. So we'll see who came closest with the ratings for this episode. But that's it. That is all. One announcement I do have. I'm going to be partnering up with Sista Speak podcast. We always talk about our friends over at Sista Speak. The ladies over there cover a lot of the same shows that we do. And right now, Sista, I was mixed up. Sista K is the only Sista from the Sista Speak podcast covering The Walking Dead because all the other sisters quit. So she looks for guest hosts every week, and I'm going to be joining her for episode 6. So in 2 weeks, I'll be on the Sista Speak podcast talking about episode 6 of The Walking Dead, and I would assume probably most of the season. And yeah, once that goes live, I will post a link to that, but we'll also be here on our own podcast talking about episode 6 too, so don't worry about that. But yeah, fun little crossover event there that I'm sure will be a lot of fun. Dennis, I know you're excited, right?
Yeah, I'm pumped. Can't wait to hear that one.
You love Sista Speak.
It's always a good podcast.
It is.
Enjoy it.
It's a lot of fun. I do highly recommend Sista Speak. You'll just laugh your ass off. I do all the time listening to them. So they're a lot of fun. And yeah, other than that, if you want to send feedback into our show, you could do so twdepodcast@gmail.com, and you can join us on our social media sites, facebook.com/fandomfound, Twitter @fandomfound. And if you want to subscribe to our podcast on Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Stitcher Radio, all the other possible podcast listening platforms, you could go to fandomfound.com/subscribe and subscribe to our Walking Dead enthusiast feed. So I can proudly say I feel like a Walking Dead enthusiast again. Right when I was gonna rebrand the show to the Walking Dead unenthusiasts, they really revived my hopes and dreams for the show. So I'm proud. I'm a proud Walking Dead enthusiast. And with that, good night. No. All right. You guys have any final thoughts before we wrap this shit up?
I'm good.
All right.
Nope.
No. All right, guys. Well, until next time, I'm Sebastian.
I'm John.
I'm Dennis.
Thanks for listening to this episode of the Walking Dead Enthusiast podcast by Fandom Found. See you next week when we flash forward 6 years.